Hello and welcome to step 4A of our business economics skill course about Candyland. Why 4A? Because I've divided this video in two parts. The first one is about cost analysis. The second one is about the markup. Okay? So first on this one we'll see everything about costs. Basically, you start by defining what are costs. Costs are basically expenses that affect negatively your result. You have various types of costs. You can have fixed costs and variable costs. Think of it in this way. Fixed costs are the costs that you have to pay even if you don't produce anything. Imagine in August you close down a factory, but you still have to pay for rent. You still have to pay for taxes. You still have to pay for a lot of factors of productions that will remain and will have to be paid regardless of the level of production. Variable costs instead are directly proportional to the quantity produced. So for example, in the example I've put on the screen, if you are producing an aluminum can, okay, and it costs 4 cents of aluminum per each can, if you produce 0 cans, your variable cost will be 0 euros. But if you start increasing quantities, it will go up. So if you produced 100 cans, your costs will amount to 4 euros. Total costs then can be defined as the sum of fixed costs, the costs that you have to pay anyway, and variable costs. There is another type of cost that could be confused for fixed costs and variable costs that are called direct costs and indirect costs. Why? Because direct costs are related only to a specific product that the company is producing. Okay? So for example, in the can that we have produced before, the aluminum is specific only to the can. It is a variable cost. But what, for example, if we produce a can and then a glass bottle as well? The glass that goes into the bottle will be a direct cost only of glass bottles, certainly not of the aluminum can. In this way, we have decided that direct costs refer specifically to one product. And what about indirect costs? Well, indirect costs instead are related to global business operations, for example, marketing or administrative costs. Okay? So the all-in cost of a product is defined as being the sum of the direct costs that go into that specific unit of product plus a part of total indirect costs that is allocated to it. Okay? Now, let's consider the equation. Total cost equals fixed cost plus variable costs. If Q is the quantity that you produce for any given product, and we call VCU the variable cost per unit, we can write that the total cost is given by the fixed cost amount plus quantity multiplied by the variable cost per unit. This is another way of expressing the total cost formula, expressing explicitly Q, okay? So quantity. Then you divide everything by quantity. What do you get? That the total cost over quantity is equal to the fixed cost divided by the quantity plus the variable cost per unit. So the TC over Q is the average total cost or the average cost per unit produced. Now have a look at the all-in cost. It looks similar, but it's not exactly the same. Why? Because if you divide the all-in cost, you get average total cost, which is equal to the indirect costs allocated to that unit of product plus direct costs. Remember, the two quantities are different. Okay? They give you different information. Okay? Let's have a look at the average total cost. Well, average total cost is important because it has a tendency to decrease the more you produce of any given product. Why? Because you have a fixed cost portion or an indirect cost portion here that is diluted by the amount of production that allows you to put these costs over a larger number of units. Okay, so let's say that fixed costs decrease with the increase of the production. Direct costs are different from variable costs, as we've seen. A and B, well, the aluminum can and the glass bottle, you see. If it's 4 cents per can of aluminum, certainly direct aluminum costs in a bottle are zero. As much as an aluminum can has zero direct costs for glass. But both glass and aluminum are variable costs. So they give you a different idea. The important thing is to understand how to compute correctly the average total cost, and to understand that basically it tends to get lower, so to decrease, the more you produce of any given product. And with this, I'm finished talking about costs. Now let's move to see what happens about markup in step 4b.